Hello, this is Jason from Java PC, and today we have an exciting build for everybody. This is going to be Project Frost Night. We're going to be using an iBuyPower Snowblind S, which is going to be a really cool case. This case is nice because it actually has an LCD screen, not just a glass panel here. This is actually a separate LCD. We're going to be putting in an Intel 10th Gen Core i7 10700K. We're going to be doing a Gigabyte Z490 Vision G motherboard. We're going to be putting in a Asus ROG Strix Gaming RTX 2080 Super. We're going to be using 4 8GB sticks of G.Skill Trident Royal Series RGB RAM. We're going to be doing a 1TB Sabrent Rocket NVMe M.2, as well as a Corsair Hydro 100i liquid cooler for the CPU, and 3 LL120 fans. And we're going to throw in some Asian Horse white cables, and we're going to throw in a little Rick and Morty hologram Rick. So let's get started. Thank you. This is the motherboard overall. What we're going to do now is we're going to install the RAM, the CPU, and the M.2s. So let's go ahead and get started. Alright, so what we're going to do is just remove the heat shields from the motherboard for the M.2 slots. These ones should be pretty good to go. We decided to go ahead and put in 2 1TB Sabrent Rockets, so we have both. I might decide to go ahead and put that in RAID 1 so it's mirrored, but we'll see. Might just leave them both 2 independent 1TBs. When you're dealing with the M.2, you'll want to be very careful because the screws might fall out, and the screws that hold the M.2s down are very, very tiny, so be careful not to lose those. So what we're going to do is just remove the screw from this standoff right here. And we're going to take our Sabrent Rocket and we're going to install that at a 30-degree angle. And then once it's in, we can push it down and make sure that it's screwed down to tight. Then what we're going to do is on the back side, so there goes the screw right there. Alright, so continuing on. Again, you want to be careful with the screws. Like this particular plate has this screw tied in so it won't come out all the way, but this screw came out all the way. So be careful when you guys are using these. But what we want to do is on the back side of this, we want to peel off this thermal pad cover. So we're going to take this off, and what this is going to do is help dissipate heat while the M.2 is running. So we're going to get that ready to go. And just place it on top gently like this. Get one side started, get the other screw, get it started before you snug them down. You'll want to tighten evenly, and just like when we're doing the CPU cooler, you don't want these to be tightened separately. So tighten them evenly so that way that thermal pad can touch all points of the NVMe M.2 evenly. Alright, so the second slot what we're going to do is put in the NVMe at a 30-degree angle. And unlike the first slot, this slot is actually held down by the heat spreader. So you're going to peel off your thermal paste, your thermal pad protective layer, and then this screw here is actually going to go in that slot. So we're going to get it lined up. Get it started just a little bit. Put your second screw in. And then tighten evenly. And there you go, now you have 2 1TB NVMe Sabrent Rocket solid-state drives installed. The next thing we're going to do is install the CPU. Alright, to install the CPU, what we're going to do is lift this little lever up here, up and out. Lift that whole tray up. This whole piece will come up like this. And now we can put in our CPU. Be very careful just to touch the CPU on the sides. Don't touch it on the pins or in the pins on the motherboard. And just be very careful when you're inserting it. Now, if you'll look, there's one corner on the CPU that will have a little notch on it. And that's the notch that you'll need to get lined up with the corner of the motherboard. So basically on this one in particular, the corner is right here. It has little, you can see this little arrow right here. That arrow right there, you'll match up with this arrow on the CPU block, which is right here. So again, only touching the sides. Place it in there gently. Now you're going to slide this down over top, and this should go underneath of this bolt right here. And when you do, this plastic piece will pop up and off, and you can save that for later if you need to remove the CPU. But push this down and under, this part comes off, and now your CPU is installed. Alright, so the RAM, some motherboards have RAM that only has one part that opens up like this. and some motherboards have RAM where both of them opens up, and this one is the one that opens up on both sides. What you want to hear is basically 2 distinct clicks, but just try to match this notch up with this line. But the thing about the DDR4 is that it's pretty close to the middle. In prior years, it was further over, so it's much easier to tell which side goes up and which side goes down. But just make sure that you're putting in, if you're having to force it real hard, then it's probably not the right direction. Now, if you can see right here, this notch right here matches the notch of the motherboard, and all you're going to do is just slide this down, and you'll hear 2 distinct clicks, just like that. And we're going to do that 3 more times. And just make sure that all of these are seated in there. So now we've installed 2 of our M.2 1TB solid state drives. We've installed our CPU and we've installed our RAM. At this point would be a good point to go ahead and hook it up to a power supply and do a boot test to see if it's going to go post and make sure that it's running okay, because at this point, if you get everything installed and say this motherboard is bad or the RAM is bad or the CPU is bad, you'll have to completely disassemble the computer. So at this point, it'd be a good time to actually plug it in and see if it posts okay and make sure it goes to BIOS. Today we're going to be talking about how to install a vertical GPU bracket in a case that doesn't come with one or have one prepared. There's a few reasons why for this. On a GPU, when you install it in here on the normal horizontal way, it doesn't really give you the benefit of having to be able to see the GPU in a good way. And what we want to do is put this sideways for 2 reasons. 1, it just looks awesome. It's so much better to have the fans upright. And 2, this will give us a chance to have more white background behind this LCD screen on the Snowblind build. Now, you can buy some cases, not this one particularly, but some cases that will have a GPU bracket already installed vertically. The problem is that they still keep the original slots here. And what they do is they'll put 2 slots right here in this section, making the GPU be really close to the glass and not giving you really much room for the fans to breathe. I don't like that, so what we're going to do is take this and we're going to pull these fins out right here and install a Fantex vertical GPU bracket. And this bracket can be bought pretty much anywhere, and they specify that you should only do this on cases that have these slots that aren't in there. But what we're going to do is just pull these out and actually cut off some of these and still fit it in there. So what comes with the Fantex vertical GPU bracket is the vertical GPU cable. If you buy this cable by itself, it's still going to be like 30 bucks. So this being like $50 part between this and the bracket coming with it, it's a pretty good deal. So it comes with the vertical GPU riser card, the bracket, and some mounts. And what we want to do is get this as close to the bottom as possible. So in looking at where these slots go, there's 5 slots here. There's actually 7 slots that are available. So we're going to put this in at the lowest point we can, which is going to be the 2nd slot from the bottom. And we are going to cut out the following slots. This one, this one, this one, and this one. The other ones can stay in there, the top and bottom 2, but those are the ones we're going to cut out. So let's go ahead and get our Dremel. We can use a Dremel or we can use an orbital saw, but what we want to do is just cut these off and then make sure we do this gently and don't get a lot of metal flakes in the computer. You also want to make sure that you get this done before putting in your motherboard, because sparks and little metal flakes will fly, and there's not much that motherboards don't like than little metal pieces flying all over them. So make sure you do this prior to installing the motherboard, and we're going to go ahead and show you how to cut those out here in just a moment. Alright, so I just want to go over this again, but Java PC is not responsible for any damage to your case. This is permanently modifying / disfiguring your case to do this, but when you cut out these pieces right here, we use a Dremel because it gives us a nice clean finish. We also sanded off the edges and then repainted it using some acrylic automotive paint. Just gives a nice finish, and then it does disfigure this. So when you guys are using the Dremel, make sure you wear safety protection, eyeglasses, and ear protection, any loud equipment for that matter. But this is what it should look like. And like I said, Java PC is not responsible for any damage to your case. You're doing this on your own, and it will permanently change the case configuration. Thank you.